Okay, now look, I know people roll their eyes and people get irritated with me when I talk about independence and how important they are. I'm going to just say this as forcefully as I possibly can. If you think that you can win a national election with only Republican votes, then you're not very bright because the numbers don't add up that way. That's just not the way it works. You have to win independence to win a national election because you can't win a national election if all you have are Republicans voting. And people get irritated with me that, well, you're such a rhino. You're always talking about independence. I listen, it's not that I am an independent. It's just I'm very much a conservative Republican, I'm happy to say, but I understand the math. Now, you say, well, Wilson, anything that has to do with math, we always find suspect with you. You can't add numbers easily. Well, okay, but I mean, if I get my calculator out and I hold my tongue just right, sometimes I could get math right. Look, you just can't win a national election without independence. And so when I say that in that Rasmussen report, it is notable to say that Trump takes a double-digit lead with independents, boasting a 16-point advantage over the incumbent, that is huge. That is really huge. It means that, the independents, as they stand today, listen, they're a malleable bunch. They're the mushy middle. Don't get me wrong. They can change their minds. But as they stand today, they are leaning toward Trump. Survey also asked respondents who they would support in a presidential matchup when third-party candidates are included. Again, in this scenario, Trump maintains a lead with 43% support to Biden's 37%. Another 12% choose Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Note that. That's interesting. 5% some other candidate. 3% remain unsure. In that setup, Trump still has the advantage among independents, leading Biden by 10 points. That's a very good sign. A very good sign. That survey was taken February 13th through the 15th of 2024. Among 868 likely voters with a 3% margin of error. So at 3%, you're right on the bubble of the margin of error. Another survey, this time from HarrisX, found Trump leading Biden by 9 points nationally, 47% to Biden's 38% among all voters. Once again, Trump leads Biden's among independents, this time by 10 points. Wow. 40% of independents to Biden for Trump, 30% for Biden. And another 30% remain unsure. The trend of Trump leading Biden is not only happening nationally as swing states show Trump boosting an advantage over his likely Democrat challenger. Let's just run through this, okay? This is from Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. Shows Trump leading Biden in seven out of seven swing states. Here we go. Arizona. Trump leads Biden by 3. Georgia, Trump leads Biden by 8. Michigan, and this one is one we need to make a note of, okay? And we'll come back to it. Trump 47, Biden 42, Trump leads by 5. Nevada, Trump 48, Biden 8, Trump leads by 8. North Carolina, Trump leads by 10. Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 3. Wisconsin, Trump leads by 5. Whew. And if you put the mix in with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., those numbers tend to go up for Trump. I mean, putting Kennedy in the mix takes away from Biden more than it takes away from Trump. So I won't bore you with all the numbers, but I mean, usually, for example, Arizona, if you do Trump, Biden, Kennedy, Trump leads by 8. Here's one. Nevada, Trump leads by 12 when you add Kennedy into the mix. In Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 3. Wisconsin, Trump leads by 8. So there you go. I mean, all these numbers tend to suggest to me, if they're accurate, that the polls are beginning to sort of shift. Now, there's always, a long way to elections and things can happen and who knows, what will happen between now and then. The only thing that I know about this election cycle is it's likely to be unlike any election cycle that you or I have witnessed in our lifetimes. I think it will be very different. Because, number one, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that Trump will be the Republican nominee. I don't see anything changing that. On the other hand, I can see that Biden might not be the nominee. The old convention switcheroo, I don't know. It seems like it's possible. So who knows how that's going to play out? Who will actually Trump be running against? That changes all the numbers. It could be in a good way, could be in a bad way. Depends on who Democrats finally settle on. I just don't think Biden is going to be the guy. I'll tell you who else doesn't think. Trump doesn't think that Biden's going to be the guy. I noticed yesterday Nikki Haley said she doesn't believe that that Biden's going to be the guy. They're absolutely clear that a lot of people are going, I just don't think it's going to be Biden. Maybe it will be, but who knows? And then, then the question is, what happens with the third-party candidates? Right now, the strongest of the third-party candidates is Robert F. Kennedy. He's pulling in, a number, enough to change things and sort of recast things. But what if another third-party candidate, like a no-labels candidate, gets in there? And what if it's Nikki Haley? I mean, she says she doesn't want it, but who knows? So, all I'm telling you is the way things look today, we should note it. We should know exactly what it is. But I honestly feel like it's going to be different by the time we get to Election Day and we actually cast our ballots, right? All right. So in Michigan, Haley defiant as campaign braces for blowout loss in Michigan. No surprise there. Trump will win. On the Democrat side of the equation, it's pretty interesting in that there are a great number of people who are in Michigan who are going to vote uncommitted. Now, these are Arab Americans, Muslim Americans who live in Michigan. There's a great community of them there, and they're not happy with Joe Biden. And it could get bad. And so people are going to look to see, well, how many people vote uncommitted? Because that will be a sign of just how big a problem that Joe Biden has in Michigan when it comes time for the general election, okay? This is the primary, but it may give us a clue into how people are going to vote in the November general election. And why is that important? Well, according to Sean Trendy over at RealClearPolitics.com, there's no way probably for Biden to win the presidency if he cannot win the state of Michigan.
Yeah, if he doesn't win Michigan, it's pretty much over. And just because I laughed while you were saying that because people are just in denial about this online and just how dire things are. I don't think Trump has ever led in a Michigan poll in 2016 or 2020. Maybe Trafalgar had one at the end of 2016, but I mean, this is unprecedented. So Biden's in a world of hurt there. And if he's shedding Arab American voters because of his position in Israel, it is very, very difficult for him to win the presidency without Michigan.
And right now, Trump leads Biden in Michigan by 5. By 5. That's not one poll. That is the average of polls taken in the state of Michigan. Trump leads Biden by 5. That's the biggest lead that we've ever seen for Trump in the state of Michigan. Again, it's usually a very close race. Michigan, I mean, he won it one time. He lost it one time. Here we go. This is from the AP, the Associated Press. Biden is confronting perhaps his most potent electoral obstacle yet, an energized movement of disillusioned voters upset about his handling of the war in Gaza and a relationship with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that critics say has been too supportive. Now, I don't agree with that, quite frankly. I think we need to be supportive of Israel. I'm just saying that in Michigan, they have a different view of it because of this Arab American Muslim population. Those dynamics will be put to test in Michigan, the last major primary state before Super Tuesday, and a critical swing state in November's general election. Even if they post dominant victories as expected on Tuesday, both campaigns will be looking at the margins for signs of weakness in the state that went for Biden by just 3 points last time. Okay, went for Biden 3 points last time. He won Michigan by 3. Right now, he's behind by 5. A shift of 8 points. 3 plus 5. 8 points. Michigan has the largest concentration of Arab Americans in the nation. More than 310,000 residents are of Middle Eastern or North African ancestry. Nearly half of Dearborn's roughly 110,000 residents claim Arab ancestry. So this is being led, by the way, by progressives like Rashida Tlaib. And so a lot of people may vote uncommitted. A lot of people may actually say, oh, there's a quote in here from one guy, one fellow, Shahir Al-Durab, an engineer from Dearborn, said, I'm voting for Trump because not because I want Trump. I just don't want Biden. So there you go. And let's see. There's also a real concern out there about how many black voters will vote for Biden, that he may be losing black male voters. I'll talk about that and give you some more about the 2020 election right after this. 21 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. I owe a lot to the good people at Busy Bee. I'm telling you right now. Yesterday, if you were with us, you may have heard me talking about how over the weekend we developed a critical sewer failure in our house. We didn't know what it was. We just knew that it was bad. Things were backing up, and it wasn't good. And I had the guys from Busy Bee finally come out on Monday morning. It's the first time I could call, and they came out. You know what? It took them a while to figure it out, but we had a sewer line that had completely just, clogged up and broken. And so we had to replace it. And they were here from 1 o'clock yesterday till dark out there fixing my sewer line so that now all the potties, all the showers, all the washers and dryers, the dishwasher, we can now use water in our house for anything that we need to use it for because our sewer system is operating. Now, listen, they came when I had a need, and I got to tell you, I've every single time I've called them in a moment of need, they have been able to fix my problem in rapid order. And so I just want to say thank you to them, but also just remind you that I think this is a company that will do that. Well, sure, you say, well, Brian, they do it for you because you read their commercials. No, I think they'll do this for anybody. Chris Webber called them up the other day. They came right out to fix his problem. So listen, if you have a problem, just call the folks at Busy Bee. If with your plumbing, your heating, your cooling, whatever it is, 615-775-7833, online at busybhvac.com.
That missing 15-year-old out of Sumner County that we were covering yesterday, still missing, and negotiations continuing in Gaza for a ceasefire. We'll tell you all about it. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, Mac Morey there in the newsroom with all the stories, and Chris Webber pushing all the blinky buttons today. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. We are very happy here at Stately Wilson Manor now that we have all our potties in working order.
Smelling fresh and clean again?
Yeah, I took a shower today. I'm no longer gamey. It was getting rough around our house, I tell you what. When you think about it, your sewer system goes down, you can't use your kitchen sink. You can't use any sink. You can't wash clothes. You can't wash dishes. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't take a shower. You can't do anything. I mean, Think about all the things that happen when your sewer system, and if you did, the fear it would back up into the house, and you don't want that. I can tell you, I saw what happened when it backed up into the pool house. That was bad enough.
Not pretty, huh?
No, it was not pretty, and it's still not pretty. I got to go put in a fumigation suit to go out there and clean things up. I know, it's just horrible. But anyway, there's a lovely thought.
Yes.
I'm talking about 2020 politics. I want to finish up a few thoughts here, and because there's so much, I can't squeeze it in to one thing. You got a lot of people who worked in the Obama White House who worked alongside Joe Biden when he was vice president, now coming forward and saying, he's frail and he's mumbly, and they're very worried about him. Here's a guy named John Favreau, not the director, but somebody who was a speechwriter in the Obama White House. If you watch Joe Biden speak, oftentimes he sounds frail. He sounds more frail than he used to, even in 2019, 2020. That's true. The voice sounds frail. He shuffles more because of the arthritis in his back. And he also appears, quote unquote, mumbly. Well, no, that can't be, because everybody tells me, if you ask, he's sharp as a tack.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
Anyway, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. I was just thinking, anyway, I just, look,
it's just painful, isn't it, to listen to that? David Axelrod, who, many people look at as sort of the mouthpiece for Barack Obama. Obama doesn't want to come out and publicly trash Joe Biden, who was his vice president. But it's largely thought that David Axelrod, through his position as a commentator over at CNN, often is doing the speaking for Obama. He says he's very concerned that Biden is going to lose a number of black votes. Here we go.
Look, he's polling, 21% among African-American voters here. Biden
talking about Trump polling 21%.
88% of that vote back in 2020, and this is going to be a marginal race. So this is a concern. And yes, black men, and particularly younger black men, are the ones that are drifting away. Some may vote for Trump, some may not vote at all. And this has to be a concern for the Biden campaign. Trump knows that, and by the way, I think it may impact on his vice presidential choice. And, there's a lot of talk about Tim Scott as a vice presidential candidate. I think if he picks Tim Scott, it's partly because he recognizes this would be helpful in kind of sealing in that portion of the African-American vote that he now has.
Yeah. So, if Biden was at, if Trump was at, I don't know, about 12% last time voters, and he's now up to, somewhere around 21%. That is huge. In a marginal election, when things are already tight, that would be a big deal. Two quick things. No ruling yet from the Supreme Court about whether or not on that Colorado case that looks at the 14th Amendment argument that Donald Trump cannot rule because he's not eligible. We have got nothing from the Supreme Court, but they're doing early voting in Colorado, and as right now, Trump's name is on the ballot. And in New York City, there has been an effective blockade and voter integrity efforts to block 800,000 non-citizens from voting in municipal elections. Progress being made on that front. 31 now, past the hour of 3 o'clock.
.331, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 70 degrees in Nashville. Got a wind advisory in effect for all of Middle Tennessee until noon tomorrow. Could see gusts of up to 45 miles an hour. Tracking showers today and tomorrow as well. Got a weather forecast, traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. You may have just gotten that Amber Alert in your phone. It's for a missing teenager in Tennessee, 15-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. Still missing after being last seen Sunday in Sumner County in the beach area of Hendersonville near Long Hollow Pike. Search teams have began to play music to help soothe and find the autistic teenage boy. Channel 4's Danielle Jackson spoke to officials about what the public can do to help.
He also told us you can share this message on social media. That's another way you can help. They said if you have any leads, tips, or any creative ideas to help aid in this search, they urge you to call the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. Now, they said that they have received some creative ideas that are helping them, and they're always open to more.
Officials have deployed helicopters, drones. They've had different units in the woods and knocking door to door trying to find Rogers. Today, they've had more than 150 searchers on the ground. And negotiations for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza, quote, not done yet, despite President Biden saying he hopes to see a deal by next Monday. That update from White House officials today. National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby also addressed the growing concern about starvation in the war zone.
The United States will provide an additional $53 million in urgently needed humanitarian assistance, which will include assistance to the World Food Program and other international NGOs, providing resources for food, shelter, water, medicine, sanitation, hygiene, all to the people of Gaza and the West Bank.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
You know, if you've been around here for a long time, you know about Eurofix. It's the place to go for European car repairs and has been for some 24 years now. And over the years, if you've been here in Nashville, you've noticed that they've been growing. Well, I love it when a hometown business takes off, and they have now got a new location. I guess it's been open for a little while, but it's still new. Many people don't know about it. It's a fifth location over in Mount Juliet, right across the street from the Dairy Queen on Mount Juliet Road. Now, Eurofix can serve you in, here are the locations, Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now in Mount Juliet. And it's great getting to watch a small-town mechanic who started in a barn in the backyard of a single-wide trailer grow to 5 locations and now repairing, this is unbelievable, thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you can get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com. 38 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. You're listening to The Drive, and I am your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson. That's right, I'm your Farb. And I'm happy to be with you on this 27th day of February. Even though it's sort of cloudy outside and sort of gloomy, it's right now here in bucolic Watertown. It is 74 degrees.
Yeah, I was really surprised at how warm it was outside, given how overcast it is.
Yeah, I know. Southern breezes, I guess it's southern breezes that are causing that. So anyway, coming up from the Gulf, and the air is warm, and it seems like it's sort of moist. That's why we've got the gloomy gray clouds. But again, not bad. I'll take it. Again, I read something in passing today that the city of like Dallas is expecting temperatures in the 90s here in a day or so.
Good grief.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, wow, how does that happen? And I don't know. So anyway, enjoy this. Listen, it's the 27th day of February. You cannot complain about 74-degree weather. That's bonus. Nobody expects that. So
yeah. Don't get used to it. We'll be in the 40s.
I'm pretty sure there'll be one more snow shower. That's the way. Probably so. Okay. So this whole Fannie Willis thing. The question is, when did Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade, when did their relationship begin? They're trying to, the Trump people and the forces who are sort of associated with Trump are trying to prove that it began long before she appointed him to be the prosecutor and paid him like nearly $700,000 to prosecute Trump. And they're trying to prove that because they say, well, if you did that, then, you hired basically your lover and gave him a very lucrative contract to prosecute a case when the guy really didn't have any credentials as a prosecutor. And then, you're going to, then you went on vacations and spent some of that money. So you got benefit from the money that you sent to your lover. That's the whole thing there. And so they've had one witness who said, no, I saw them kissing and hugging long before the appointment was made in the office. And then there's this guy named Terrence Bradley, who was the divorce attorney for Nathan Wade. And he's been ordered. He took the stand today to answer questions about the relationship between Wade and Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis. Now, he initially tried to remove himself from having to testify, said, well, you can't make me testify about that because I was his divorce attorney and I have attorney-client privilege on those matters. They're privileged, and you can't make me talk about that because it would be violating the attorney-client privilege. But a Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee determined that some of Wade's communications did not cover him, that a current attorney-client privilege was not in play, and that was done behind closed doors. And so they brought him back out, and the questioning began. The court believes the interested parties did not meet their burden of establishing that the communications are covered by attorney-client privilege, and therefore the hearing can resume as to Mr. Bradley's examination. And that began today. So Bradley takes the stand, and you talk about evasive. You talk about a guy who has a bad case. I mean, this guy's got a worse memory than Joe Biden. It's bad. I took like a 2-minute clip out of it. This is it's like trying to pull teeth to get answers out of this guy. Here's a little sample of it that gives you an idea of how difficult it was to get answers.
So you knew, as the counsel for a defendant in this case, that Ms. Merchant was asking you specifically about the knowledge that you had regarding the timing of the relationship between Wade and Ms. Willis, correct?
Based on this, yes. I see what was asked.
And in response to that, you answered directly on your own what you now claim to be speculation, right?
That's correct.
So I ask you one more time before I move to the next part of this. Why would you speculate when she was asking you a direct question about when the relationship started?
I have no answer for that.
Except for the fact that you do, in fact, know when it started, and you don't want to testify to that in court. Overruled. That's the best explanation, isn't it?
This is a completely argumentative.
That's the true explanation, because you don't want to admit it in court, correct?
No, I have no direct knowledge of when the relationship started.
I'm not going to go back through that again. But if you didn't know, and you were asked specifically as this exhibit shows, maybe you can explain why you wouldn't say, I don't know.
Is that a question? You're asking me a question to answer?
Definite question.
State that again. I apologize.
If you're being asked, as we've just gone through with this text message from Ms. Merchant,
yes,
as the attorney for a co-defendant,
yes,
and she's asking you about the relationship, and she's clearly asking you about the timing, why wouldn't you just have said in response, I don't know when it started?
I don't know why I didn't say I don't know.
I don't know why I said I don't know. Well, I don't know why I didn't say I don't know. I mean, come on. Look, the thing about it is you've got to believe that the judge sees through this. He had testified earlier and gave some indication that, about that he had some knowledge of when the relationship began. And so they were trying to get him to, pin it down. And I mean, they worked on him for hours, and you just got a bunch of runaround. But, it really is a good question. You say you were speculating in your testimony. You're not supposed to speculate in your testimony. You're only supposed to talk about the things that you know. So if you were asked the question, then why didn't you say, instead of speculating, I don't know? I don't know why I didn't say I don't know. I think the judge is seeing through all this. I don't think it looks good for Fannie Willis, and I don't think it looks good for Nathan Wade. And I think that's a good thing, because I think that the judge is going to throw them out. And then the question is, what happens to the case there that they've been bringing against Donald Trump? All right. We've got this other case in New York City where, here it's a case really basically where the judge, Arthur Engoron, totally in the tank against Donald Trump, has ruled that Trump needs to pay $354 million in fines because they claim that he allegedly overinflated the value of properties when he was going for a bank loan. The post-judgment interest is accruing at, are you ready for this? $112,000 a day. So, every day, tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. And here's what Letitia James is taking a victory lap on X. In a massive victory, we won our case against Donald Trump for engaging in years of incredible financial fraud to enrich himself. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and his former executives must pay over $450 million in disgorgement and interest. Now she has denied that she has a personal vendetta against Trump, despite the fact that she basically ran for the office of Attorney General, saying, "You make me Attorney General, and I'll go after Trump." Oh, we don't have anything in. We don't have it in for him. Wow, but I'm telling you, when you talk about interest, about $112,000 a day, he has asked for an appellate court to review this matter, and one can only hope that there's enough, and I think there is enough error that this will be overturned. I must tell you that people in the business world are sort of universally, even if they don't like Trump, they're sort of universally looking at this judgment and saying, you know what, that's just not right. So, just to recap here, remember, Trump went to a bank and said, I need a loan, and here are the collateral that I'll put up. It's properties that I own, and this is how much they're worth. The bank, getting ready to give a multi-million-dollar loan, looked at it, and they have every ability to examine those properties and determine whether or not the values are fair. They didn't raise any concern about it. If they had, it could have been adjusted, but they never did. They simply said, okay, we take that and we look at your record and see that you'd have a history of paying back loans, and we hereby approve your loan. And by the way, the loan was made, the money used, and paid back with interest. Nobody, not one human being, lost a penny in that transaction, and the bank made a lot of money in interest because they made a loan, and they never, ever blinked once. So tell me, if the loan was made and paid back with interest, and the bank was so happy that they wanted to do more business with Donald Trump, they don't feel in any way that they got snookered by Donald Trump. They simply are looking for more opportunities to do business with Donald Trump. Tell me who's the victim in all of that. And I think business people are looking around and say, this is the way it's done. Why, they look at this and they shake their head in disbelief that this judge actually made this kind of ruling. So the hope is that you get it to an appellate court, somebody will have a little sanity and say, hold on a minute, that's just way out of line. Even if you got a conviction, the fine is too hefty. I don't know of anybody, if you get convicted in most courts and you say, Your Honor, we want to appeal this to the higher court, and we ask that you stay the penalty until we can have a chance to have this heard at a higher court. Generally, you get that. Generally, they'll say, okay. In this particular case, because I think Arthur Engoron, the judge, just has it in for Trump, as does, Letitia James, I think they just decided they were going to make him pay. So let's hope that the appellate court steps in and tries to rectify that horrendous ruling by the Judge Engoron. We'll continue to watch it and keep you on top of all that. It is now 50 minutes, call it 51 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Got a wind advisory in Nashville. Negotiations continue for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. And if you got an Amber Alert on your phone about 30 minutes ago, it's because Sumner County officials are alerting you that a 15-year-old autistic teenager is still missing, was last seen on Sunday. We'll get you all the information. 4 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you, Mac Maury. Listen, let's look at the markets. Dow Jones Industrials down 96 points, almost 100 points today. The S&P was up, but only a little bit, about 8 points. NASDAQ up 59. So mixed boards today. But there's other economic news to focus on as well. Consumer confidence dipped in February. Let's check in with John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management to find out more about that. Good afternoon, John.
Hey, good afternoon, Brian. Yeah, you're right. The market was flat, but as you know, this is an election year and no sitting president in either party wants an unhealthy consumer. So consumer confidence is something that the market and everyone's going to be watching. That report was actually expected to go up this month, and it went from 114 to 106.7. So that was quite a drop. And what this report really reflects is that consumers are still concerned about the economy. They're concerned about their income, the labor market, and really, again, the overall economy. So it's going to be really interesting to see the PCE index that's going to be coming up on Thursday, because that's a picture of inflation, which is still a concern. So not a good report on consumer confidence today.
All right. Thank you very much, John. And by the way, if you want to find out more about all the things that John Maxon and the good people at Beacon Capital Management can do for you to help you get ready for your retirement, just go to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 59 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Speaking of Beacon, Beacon Capital Management has created a free retirement savings calculator to help you make informed decisions for retirement. It's free and it's fast. You can do this probably in less than a minute. You'll get your results immediately. Just go to askbeaconnow.com. Maybe you want a deeper dive with the folks at Beacon. Why don't you write down this number, 615-488-9303. Again, that's 615-488-9303. Talk to the folks there, and they will get with you, ask you some questions, and then give you their best advice. Listen, in this entire process, you have nothing to lose except for potential worry about your retirement. Replace the worries with confidence that you're on the right path. The number again, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more again at askbeaconnow.com.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 74 degrees in Music City. Wind advisory in effect in all of the mid-state until noon tomorrow. Could see gusts from the southwest of up to 45 miles an hour. Showers likely tonight into tomorrow. We got traffic and a complete weather forecast headed your way in 5 minutes. Negotiations for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza not finalized, despite President Biden saying he hopes to see a deal by next Monday. Here's Karen Travers.
The White House is cautioning that negotiations for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza are, quote, not all done yet. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
We believe that we are getting closer. And while we don't want to sound too sanguine or Pollyannish about it, we do think that there's been some serious negotiations.
President Biden told reporters Monday evening he hopes there will be a ceasefire in Gaza within a week. A senior Israeli source tells ABC that Prime Minister Netanyahu was surprised by the president's comment.
A missing teenager in Tennessee. If you got an Amber Alert about 30 minutes ago, it's because Sumner County officials are still searching for 15-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He was last seen Sunday in Sumner County in the beach area of Hendersonville near Long Hollow Pike. He was wearing all black. He's about 5'5". Search teams have began to play music to help soothe and find this autistic teenage boy. Channel 4's Danielle Jackson spoke to officials about what the public can do to help.
He also told us you can share this message on social media. That's another way you can help. They said if you have any leads, tips, or any creative ideas to help aid in this search, they urge you to call the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. Now, they said that they have received some creative ideas that are helping them, and they're always open to more.
Officials have deployed helicopters, drones. They've had different units in the woods, even ones knocking door to door trying to find Rogers. Today, they've had more than 150 searchers on the ground. Right now, staying in the volunteer state, Fox 17 reports that Gallatin is the first city in Tennessee to employ new technology targeting potholes. The city has installed sensors and cameras on 30 city fleet vehicles, which will record real-time vibration data to detect potholes, cracks, and other issues as city employees go about their daily business. The RMT sensors work like a seismograph. They record vibrations at a pace of 1,000 times per second. The trash trucks will also record images of those roads. And a verdict in the trial of the men charged in the murder of New York rapper Jam Master Jay. Derek Dennis.
The guilty verdicts came after days of deliberation against suspects Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan. Jurors siding with prosecutors in their argument that rapper Jam Master Jay, whose real name was Jason Mizell, was killed in a dispute over a drug deal, with Washington acting as an armed accomplice and Jordan firing the fatal shots. The deadly 2002 shooting in a Queens recording studio had been unsolved for more than 2 decades as one of the most shocking crimes in music history.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, everybody, it's 8 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We got 1 hour down. We got 3 exciting big hours of news and information to go. I mean, how in the world does he do it every day? 4 hours of information that keeps you informed about what's going on. I mean, people stand in awe of what we try to do here each day. I just call it Tuesday. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Is that why they're standing there staring? I thought it was for another reason. They're in awe. Okay, they're in
awe. They are. Right. No, I'm in a goofy mood today. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the thrill of being able to go to the bathroom again in my house. I'll tell you what.
It's important.
Well, it is important. Mm-hmm. Things get complicated when you don't have a sewer system that works. And then, what irritates me is that I find out, I said, well, what caused it? Because, why does a sewer line just fail?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great, it works. It's just a pipe.
Mm-hmm.
What happened that caused a sewer line to fail? And the guy tells me, he says, well, it was installed improperly.
Oh,
it was installed wrong. What? I don't know. The house is 20 years old. So, but I think that particular line may have been run during an add-on that they did about 10 years ago. I think. I don't know. The history of our house is still a little bit murky. We don't have all the details. But one way or the other, it was installed wrong. And so it functioned for either 10 or 20 years. I think maybe 20 years. Even though it was installed improperly, but it had a fracture in it when they over-tightened some stuff or they did something wrong with the installation. And finally, it just shattered. The cracks it just came apart. And so literally, the guy runs a camera down into the sewer. They got one of them snaky cameras, that goes down into the sewer and looks around, and he just runs into nothing. Just hits like a wall. And it's because the pipe had collapsed and it was just dirt. And so, there was no way for the sewage to get out. So guess what? It starts to back up, and that's dangerous because it backs up into the house. You got a serious mess. Probably more than anybody cared about my ongoing sewer problems. But I'm telling you, maybe I'm giddy because now I have sewers at my house. That's why I'm in such a weird mood. Yeah.
I guess that's why the Romans were always so happy. They developed those sewer systems back then.
Yeah, and theirs worked.
Yeah,
better than mine did. I'll tell you for sure. All right, let's see. Let's move on. We've exhausted all the sewer jokes. So let's move on to this. There was a big meeting at the White House today among the big four. Okay, who are the big four? Well, the president makes 5, but it's the Republican and Democrat leaders of both the House and Senate. So it was Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson for the House. It was Mitch McConnell and Schumer in the Senate, all sitting down in the Oval at the White House. And it was ostensibly to try to talk about how do we avoid a government shutdown. Now, the good news is everybody left that meeting pretty sure that there would be no government shutdown. Nobody wants a government shutdown. At this point, the Democrats don't want it. The Republicans don't want it. It's really, it's stupid because, they're having some difficult conversations about things that, are going to take some time to hammer out. So they'll just do a CR and they'll keep on moving and the government will not shut down. So, that is not the real issue. But I mean, all of this is tied up in sort of a myriad, an amalgam of things that they're discussing. They're discussing. Number one, the long-term budget. They're trying to avoid a shutdown. And tied up in all of this is frustration by Republicans about what's going on at the border. So this was against that backdrop is where this meeting took place. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, came out to the cameras. When you work at the White House, there's called the Northwest Drive. You come in the Northwest Gate and you go through security and you walk up the drive past all the cameras that are there for the live shots. And then in the driveway, they set up the reporters will set up a mic stand. Everybody puts their mics on it and politicians, when they're coming to the White House, know that if you walk out, you can, the cameras are going to be there and you can make your statements to the cameras. So that it's at that location with the Marine Guard in the background showing that the president is in the Oval Office. Anytime the Marine Guard was there, we knew the president was in the Oval Office. When the Marine Guard is not there, the president's not in the Oval Office. But in the background, you see the Marine Guard, and Johnson walks up to the microphones, and it talks about all of these issues, budgets, but most importantly, getting out to the American people what he said in the Oval Office about the border situation.
Last several weeks, going around the country, appearing at events with my colleagues, and we're hearing from the American people of all parties and all persuasions in all cities and all states who feel this acutely. They understand the catastrophe at the border is affecting everyone, and it is top of mind for all the American people for that reason. So I brought that issue up repeatedly today in that room and again one-on-one with the president. I think that's our responsibility to bring that up. The other big priority for our country, of course, is the funding of our government. And we have been working in good faith around the clock every single day for months and weeks and over the last several days, quite literally around the clock, to get that job done. We're very optimistic. I hope that the other leaders came out here and told you the same. We believe that we can get to agreement on these issues and prevent a government shutdown, and that's our first responsibility. You also heard, I'm sure, that there was discussion about the supplemental spending package, and I was very clear with the president and all those in the room that the House is actively pursuing and investigating all the various options on that, and we will address that in a timely manner. But again, the first priority of the country is our border and making sure it's secure. I believe the president can take executive authority right now today to change that, and I told him that again today in person, as I've said to him many times, publicly and privately over the last several weeks. It's time for action. It is a catastrophe, and it must stop. And we will get the government funded, and we'll keep working on that. So we'll have more for you soon.
And with that, he walked away, reporters, clamoring and asking more questions. So you can see how it's all sort of tied up together. The supplemental is that the package that was worked out between the White House and some Republicans in the Senate that would fund, continue to provide funds for Ukraine, continue to fund money for Israel, and would also, could do something about the border. But the House of Representatives didn't like what was proposed for the border, so they're against the idea of that supplemental. But they're trying to figure out ways to perhaps do something for Israel. And Ukraine is an open question whether or not there'll be support in the Congress, especially in the House of Representatives, to continue supporting Ukraine. So all of that, again, it's an all-in amalgam that they're going. But you see that at the core for Johnson, the thing that he most wants to take care of is better funding and better situation at the border and to solve the border problems, which he believes can be done by executive action. Now, as it turns out, the President of the United States and Donald Trump are both going to be on the border Thursday. I don't know why Biden is going to Brownsville. Because certainly, in all of the stories that I've seen about what's going on the border, I don't see any stories that say that Brownsville is the hub of where things are really happening. Eagle Pass, El Paso, other places, they've got bigger story. But apparently Biden's going to the calmer waters of Brownsville, Matamoros, to look at the situation there and to have his little dog and pony show. And they'll pull in one or two, Border Patrol agents who will stand in the background and say nothing. But I guarantee you, if you were to take Biden and put him in a room full of Border Patrol agents and remove the cameras and just let them have their say, the President of the United States would get an unmitigated earful about how frustrated they are about the situation on the border. Now, you might think that Biden might take this opportunity to reverse some executive actions, because after all, it's either, depending on who you talk to, 64 or 94 different executive actions that caused the crisis on the border. And since he was the one who took those actions, it would seem very easy for him to reverse those actions. But if he reverses earlier actions, then it pretty much admits that what happened at the border was his fault. He can't do that, right? So he's going to listen. He's not going to make any announcements about executive actions.
Is there anything new that you could share about the president's visit to the border on Thursday? Does he have any plans to announce any executive actions?
So I don't have anything I'm not going to get ahead of the president. Don't have anything to announce at this time. We've spoken to executive actions. I've spoken to that many times. We think the bottom line is the way to have dealt with this border, the challenge that we see at the border, what we see with this immigration, a broken immigration system that has been broken for decades, is if Republicans have moved forward with the bipartisan deal that came out of the Senate. But instead of doing that, Donald Trump, they listened to Donald Trump, the former president, and they made it about politics. They did not make it about an issue that majority of Americans care about.
That's just a bunch of you-know-what. The fact of the matter is, and people know this, you can't get this one past the people because they're paying attention, right? They're paying rapt attention. They know that we did not have a border crisis during Trump's reign in office. We have a border crisis the moment that Joe Biden takes office and then issues a bunch of executive orders to change the way the Border Patrol and ICE were doing their job down on the border and to change interpretations of the law. That it's all on Biden, and somehow they just keep thinking if they say it enough that people will figure out that it's they'll say, well, I heard them at the White House say that this is the Republicans' fault. Nobody believes that. Nobody is ever going to believe that. So he's not going to do anything. He's going down there for a dog and pony show. He's going to make the case that Republicans need to pass that compromise legislation, which was dead on arrival the moment it came over to the House of Representatives. It was never going anywhere. It's still not going anywhere. It's never going to go anywhere because it's a horrible piece of legislation, and the House is right to stand and say, we're not going to pass this, because all it really does is just puts a rubber stamp on what the Biden administration is doing and would give them more people to process paperwork, not actually enforce the border. He doesn't need, let me say this again, he doesn't need anybody to fix the border situation. He can do it single-handedly with the snap of a finger, with one phone call and a couple of signatures. It goes back to being like it was when Donald Trump was in office. He doesn't need any kind of authority from Congress to do that. He caused the problem. He can uncause the problem, and the American people are well aware of that. They're not going to fall for this. And by the way, the president munching on an ice cream in New York says he didn't know that Donald Trump was going to be on the border the same day he was going to be there.
I've been planning to go Thursday. What I didn't know is my good friend apparently is gone.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump's his good friend now. Well, I guess, he's happy because he's got Choco Chip right there. I'm telling you, we're in bad shape when it comes to having a president right now. We got a guy who is just completely ineffectual in that office, and going around doing soft. Well, I got more to talk about with it. I'll do the thing that Biden does anyway. We'll come back to this in just a moment. 21 past the hour of 4 o'clock. Folks, the chairman of the Federal Reserve has said we're on an unsustainable fiscal path, that we aren't going to pay off the $34 trillion debt anytime soon, so they'll just print more money to pay the debt on the interest on the debt and then debase the U.S. dollar in doing so. You can save with gold and other precious metals because gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. My friends at Nashville Gold and Coin are standing by to answer all your questions about the precious metals market. Now, maybe you've thought about adding gold or other precious metals to your portfolio, but you feel like you don't have the knowledge you need to make a smart decision. Well, that's the way I felt, but I got the professional guidance I needed at Nashville Gold and Coin. You make an appointment, sit down one-on-one with my friends there. They'll answer all your questions, help you make the precious metals investment that is right for you. It's friendly, you'll learn a lot, and you'll never be subjected to a high-pressure sales pitch. To set up that one-on-one appointment, just go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
A meeting in the Oval Office gets testy, and we'll have today's money news, that and more. 4:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 26 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. We were talking about the situation on the border and how it is tangled up with a whole bunch of other stuff up on Capitol Hill and in Washington in the swamp right now. This comes at a time when a majority of Americans now want a border wall. The border wall has been controversial. It's been sort of controversial in some circles in America. Some people want it, some people did not want it. But for the very first time, as we told you yesterday, there was a Monmouth poll that shows that 53% of Americans now support the building of a wall on the southern border. That tells you a lot about how this has sort of permeated Americans of all stripes, of all political persuasions. They now look at this as the single most important issue facing the nation. Not the economy, which it usually is. It's the border. And so, that tells you why Biden is making this trip down to the border on Thursday. And it's a mess down there, and you're not going to see that in anything that the president looks at. I mean, this is going to be the most sanitized trip to the border. The first thing you got to know is he's going to Brownsville, where there's nothing happening. And you want to find out what's going on the border, go to Eagle Pass. Go to El Paso, go to some other place, but Brownsville, there's nothing going on there. As far as I know, I've been covering the border story every day for years now, since Biden took office. And I've never heard a story, Dateline, Brownsville, Texas. Because it ain't nothing happening there. It's all happening a little more out west, not in southern Texas. This story, it breaks your heart. State attorneys general say more than 85,000 children may have been lost at the border. They're asking Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra, and FBI Director Christopher Wray to provide information on when these children were last seen and what safeguards were put in place to ensure they were placed with proper families. 22 states' attorneys general said that Monday, more than 85 migrant children could be lost based on reports from the Department of Health and Human Services. The report issued this month shows that many of the children could be in the labor market or sex trafficked. By law, the Department of HHS, Health and Human Services, is responsible for keeping these children safe when they arrive, the Attorney General said in the letter. That responsibility includes reuniting children with family or placing them with a sponsor who will protect them, but the department is not living up to its responsibilities, and the cost of that failure is tens of thousands of potentially missing children. The Attorney General said the Biden administration needs to find the missing children, and they want a report on where they have gone, and do you know where they are now? The Department of Health and Human Services must ensure that it is not handing children over to criminals and sex traffickers. If it cannot do so, it does not know to whom it is handing these children. Don't you think you have an obligation to make sure that when you're handing children over, you're handing them over to either their family or somebody who will take care of them? Losing 85,000 kids is like losing the entire population of Sioux City, Iowa, says Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird. This is unacceptable. As a mom, it makes me sick to know that many of these missing kids have been trapped in forced labor, exploited by heinous sex traffickers. It's the federal government's job to keep these children safe. That's why she joined with 21 other attorneys general in demanding that the Biden administration immediately locate and protect these children. How do you lose 85,000 kids? And how do you not have a system in place to track it and check on their welfare? It's just egregious. Another tremendous failure by the Biden administration. 4:30 now on Super Talk 99.7.
30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 73 degrees. Got a wind advisory in effect throughout all of Middle Tennessee. That's until noon tomorrow. We could see gusts coming from the southwest up to 45 miles an hour. Forecast traffic report just ahead 5 minutes. An Oval Office meeting between President Biden and congressional leaders, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senate Republican Leader Mitch McConnell, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and House Speaker Mike Johnson reportedly turning tense after discussing some pressing issues. Ike Ajaji.
The meeting was reportedly straightforward, discussing topics like the border and the pending government shutdown. Things turning tense when discussing aid for Ukraine. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says everyone in the room told Speaker Johnson to get it done, and that history is watching. Speaker Johnson non-committal on an updated timeline.
I was very clear with the president and all those in the room that the House is actively pursuing and investigating all the various options on that, and we will address that in a timely manner.
Now over to some money news. Daria Albinger fills us in on Wall Street.
Stocks closed mixed. The Nasdaq rose 59 points and the S&P added 9, both closing shy of all-time highs, while the Dow fell 97 points. Macy's rose after unveiling a new restructuring plan, and Norwegian Cruise Line steamed higher on hopes of a stronger 2024. Chevron fell on worries that a pending takeover of Hess could be in trouble. Apple is abandoning its effort to build an electric car, and instead it's shifting employees to focus on the growing AI space. We're feeling a little less confident this month about the economy. The Conference Board, a business research group, says more respondents to its latest Consumer Confidence Index, so they were worried about a recession, even though most indicators point to a healthy economy. The index fell from 110.9 in January to 106.7 this month. The EPA says 25 toxic waste sites in 15 states will be cleaned up. The $1 billion job is part of the infrastructure law.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, listen up. If you're a chance to get that rare, hard-to-find luxury timepiece you've been searching for, this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Genesis is hosting an epic pre-owned luxury Rolex event featuring a stunning new selection of hard-to-find Rolex models, all the hottest models that people wait for years. These are carefully chosen timepieces. They've been refurbished, and they're in pristine condition. And during this event, you can take advantage of special pricing and zero-interest financing. And listen to this, an extra added bonus. With the purchase of any luxury pre-owned Rolex at this event, Genesis will give you a pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings free. That's a $4,000 value. Also for this event, Genesis pre-owned Rolex buyers are on site offering top dollar if you have an old Rolex that you want to sell. You can buy, sell, or trade. So come see the largest selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches in the state and take advantage of special financing. Get a pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings free Thursday, Friday, and Saturday only at Genesis Diamonds, your home for luxury pre-owned Rolexes in Green Hills and Cool Springs. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive on this 27th day of February. Right now, here in bucolic Watertown, a very, very pleasant, even though it's not, we don't have abundant sunshine, still 75 degrees. I mean, that's nice, huh? Let's take advantage of that. I want to get some Tennessee news. It's an amalgam of stuff. It's just a big mishmash of stuff, but it all has to do with the stuff happening here in the volunteer state. A Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skermetti has joined 23 other attorneys general filing an amicus brief that was they're joining an amicus brief that was filed by the Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach on Friday. In support of Texas and Governor Greg Abbott in their legal fight with the federal government over the governor's decision to protect the southern border. Now, Tennessee is very much in favor of trying to support. Right now, they're trying to come up with some money to send another 3,000 to 5,000 National Guardsmen down to Texas to support the state of Texas. But there are some who say, that the state of Texas does not have the right to defend itself, which I find to be ludicrous. The brief filed in the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals argues that individual states have a constitutional right to defend themselves that federal law cannot override absent a declaration from U.S. Congress. And Skermetti tells the Tennessee Star, the question ultimately relates to the sovereignty of states. A fundamental part of sovereignty is the ability to defend the territory. If the courts decide the states can't do that, it's hard to say that the states are still sovereign. He added that self-defense is a fundamental part of what it means to be sovereign, and the federal government and states are also sovereign. I mean, but if you've got the responsibility of the federal government is to protect the state from invasion and protect the southern border, and I mean, if they default on that responsibility, and the state decides to step in and do what it can do, how in the world can you find the state at fault, it seems to me? I don't understand that. But they are pursuing this in a court of law, amicus briefs, and it's supported by 24 attorneys general from around the country. State legislature is in session, and the House has passed, according to WSMV Channel 4, several high-profile bills, and then they also had to silence Justin Jones again. The Tennessee House of Representatives approved several high-profile and controversial bills, and it led to Nashville lawmaker Justin Jones being ruled out of order and silenced on the House floor after he compared House Republicans to the neo-Nazi protesters who were at the state capitol earlier this month. Can I stop for a moment? Those neo-Nazi protesters, I took some airtime to condemn it, and I do condemn it. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't think that we in Tennessee embrace neo-Nazis. Generally, I think we all can agree on that. But there's something about that just bothered me. They're dressed in sort of a red and black uniform, and they have black masks over their face. Now you say, well, why would they wear black masks? Well, because they don't want to show their true identity, right? I mean, that's why you wear a mask. You're concealing your identity because people look at your face and they may identify you, and they don't want to be identified. They want to come out here and cause all this problem and then skulk away having not been identified. But let me ask you a question, and just think about it for a while. I don't really know the answer, but it's been bothering me ever since that happened. I can understand why they might want to cover their face, because the face is something by which you can identify people. Why were they wearing gloves? Why were they wearing gloves? What was the purpose of wearing gloves? It wasn't that cold. Why were they concealing their hands? I don't know. Just think about that one for a while, because it's been on my mind. If you got an answer, let me know. Okay, so anyway, you got Justin Jones on the floor, and here's what he said that got him silenced. It will be no wonder when the next neo-Nazi march would come. Some may argue that this is a neo-Nazi rally, talking about the proceedings on the floor of the Tennessee House. This is a neo-Nazi rally every time we convene this body. Then somebody said, there is objection. Mr. Speaker, I object to the vile things that are coming out of the representative's mouth, said Representative Jason Zachary of Knoxville, Republican. He literally disparaged the entire body, both parties. So they turned off his microphone. Here's some of the bills that are being passed. One of the bills passed would ban pride flags in school classrooms, as well as Black Lives Matter flags and other political flags. The bill still allows for historical flags. Another bill passed would ban any representative who was expelled for disorderly conduct from being reappointed to their seat. Remember when that happened? How they kicked out the two Justins? They went back. The two Justins went back to the people who sent them, and they just got reappointed, and they came right back. So the expulsion did not last very long. But if this bill becomes law, then if somebody gets expelled for their actions by a vote of the House or Senate, then they would not be able to come back until another election was held. In the Senate Monday night, lawmakers passed a bill to overhaul protocol for fire alarms in schools. Schools will now have to make sure the fire alarm is going off for an actual fire before they evacuate the building so that mass shooters would not be able to pull the alarm and then target the kids who are evacuating. The bill has already passed the House, will now be heard to Governor Bill Lee's desk for his approval. Interesting that is in the works. And then a sad note today, I think, we are 1 month away from the tragic anniversary of the Covenant school shootings. Today is February 27th. It happened on March 27th, about 11:30 in the morning. Many of us remember that day. I'll never forget it. There was at the temporary school where Covenant School is now going. They are not back at their original location. There was a bomb threat emailed to an employee of the Covenant School. Staffer received the email. The scene was cleared, and they brought in the bomb dogs, and the threat was made to the school's temporary site, the church over in Brentwood. And so they came in, they got the bomb dog, they went through the entire building, and of course they did not find a bomb. But police are working with the FBI to pinpoint the origin of the threat. Not at all cool, not at all, this is reprehensible. What that school has been through, they didn't need this today. They certainly didn't need this, having, the bomb-sniffing dogs come in. Now, listen, the other thing I want to mention is, we're 11 months past that shooting, which I think, left a scar on the heart of this community. And, of course, the tragic loss of 3 adults and 3 young students at that school. And the school is still trying to, sort of recover from the tragedy of that day 11 months ago. But I just think it's sort of ridiculous that we have not yet been able to get more information about what was going on in the mind of that shooter by looking at what was in the in this person's writings. It's tied up in a court case. It's gone on for 11 months. It's dragging. And it seems to me it's about time to get that thing finished. If we go a year and this thing is still up in the air and it's still in adjudication, I don't think that's good. I mean, we need to know if you want to have any real impact on making sure something like this does not happen again. And I think everybody, is in agreement. We don't want something like this to happen again. One of the ways that you do that is you reveal to us what was in the mind of the person who carried out the shooting. We need to know that and we can find out what was the motivation, what was going on. Understand this was a person who was going through some kind of therapy. It's never been clear exactly what kind of therapy. We know this person was, sometimes identified as a woman, sometimes identified as a man, sometimes called Audrey, sometimes called Aiden. So, what did that have anything to do with this at all? I don't know. But one thing I do know is that the answers could be found, I think, in the manifesto and the many writings that police have in their custody. And we need, I think, as a community, to know something more about that. So again, it's hard. I just was sort of shocked by the fact when I actually looked it up on the calendar. It's been 11 months to the day. And it's about time to finish that up and give the community the answer it needs so that you can perhaps prevent something like this from happening again. It's not prurient. It's not that I have a prurient interest in knowing what was in those papers, but we need to know the motivation and lawmakers need to have an understanding of this as well, because maybe there's a law, maybe there's some kind of policy that can be put in place, maybe changes can be made to prevent something like this from happening. But without having the basic facts and knowledge about the motive of the individual and what caused this person to go off the rails and do this heinous act, I don't think I think we have an obligation to answer those questions. And it's time for the judge to get off, dead center on this and reveal to us and let people make their judgments by knowing more about what was motivating. Now, there's some parts of it we can remain off record. For example, I don't think there's any value at all in knowing what some of the other targets this individual had in mind or the planning that went into attacking those targets. That's of no value. But knowing what was behind it all, and there are real questions about what this is all about, we need to get that straightened out. We should not let a year pass without knowing the answer to those questions. 50 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
A missing teenager now triggering an Amber Alert. Georgia election interference case with Donald Trump got an update there. A bomb threat at what is a very prominent Tennessee school. And Macy's winding down step by step. Those stories, 5 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 57 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I don't know whether I should get into this or not. I get a posting here on my my Facebook. Kate, is that Facebook or is that? No, it's X. I'm sorry, it's on X. Hey Brian, maybe you should be Nikki Haley's campaign manager. You're always telling us how good she'd probably do if she runs as an independent. I'm a fan of yours, but please shut up already on the issue.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm gonna take a moment or two while we're doing the news here at the top of the hour, take a couple of deep breaths. And when I come back, I'm going to respond to this individual because I think there's something we need to clear the air about here. It's 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. So I want you to imagine for a moment what you could do or how you would feel if you or a loved one had no pain. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley can lead you to a pain-free life. In the month of February, the Wellness Institute of Nashville is offering life-changing, non-surgical spinal decompression at 50% off. Now, this means payments could be as low as $30. So just call this number, 615-246-5009, to set up your consultation. Now, when you do that consultation, you'll sit down with Dr. Mitchell or Dr. Ashley, review an advanced report of the findings, and then maybe if you have an MRI you want to go over in detail, you bring that along because they often find things that others have missed. And then you will decide on which of their new age technologies is the best fit for you. Besides the non-surgical spinal decompression, they have robot laser and knee decompression for those who have knee ailments. Remember, it's 50% off non-surgical spinal decompression for new patients, cheaper than most of your insurance copays in many cases. So call Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley to set up your consultation today at 615-246-5009. I'm Brian Wilson, and the Wellness Institute of Nashville has my personal stamp of approval. So call them today at 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 72 degrees in Nashville and tracking a wind advisory that is in effect until tomorrow at noon. And that's for all of Middle Tennessee. Could see gusts of wind up to 45 miles an hour coming from the southwest. We've got a traffic report, complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Missing teenager in Tennessee, 15-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, still missing after being last seen Sunday in Sumner County in the beach area of Hendersonville. This is near Long Hollow Pike. Channel 4's Danielle Ledbetter fills us in.
That Amber Alert went out, and it's just showing you how desperate this search is becoming for Sebastian Rogers, especially now that the sun is starting to set as well. Now let's take a look at his picture again. He's only 15 years old and has some form of autism. He was last seen on Sunday wearing all black, and this search, it's an expansive search. All day long, we've seen law enforcement walking up and down the roads, canvassing, knocking on doors. We've seen canines, horses, we've seen using drones and helicopters and things like that, just showing you again how expansive this search is.
The public is not encouraged to help today, but law enforcement says you can help by looking at any surveillance footage you have. It took 2 days for them to put an Amber Alert together. The TBI says they reserve Amber Alerts for the most serious missing child cases. They said that they have learned some additional information, leading them to believe that this child is in imminent danger. Attorneys for Donald Trump and other Georgia election interference case lawyers were back in court today, once again trying to disqualify the prosecutor. They claim DA Fani Willis had an affair with one of the attorneys she hired before she brought him on and created a conflict of interest. Andy Field has the latest.
This case is about DA Fani Willis and whether she hired prosecutor Nathan Wade after they had begun a romantic relationship. If so, it might disqualify both from pushing the election interference case against Donald Trump and other co-defendants. A lawyer for one of those defendants says Wade's former law partner, Terrence Bradley, texted her saying they absolutely were involved before his hiring. Today on the stand, Bradley changed that to,
It was speculation.
The Georgia DA disqualification hearing continues Friday.
Right now in Tennessee, Covenant School received a bomb threat this morning via email. The threat was sent around 6 a.m. The school was cleared by around 11 at their temporary site in Brentwood. They plan to return to their main campus mid-April. Macy's planning to close more than 100 stores as it shifts its focus towards what it hopes to be a more profitable future. Sherry Preston.
It's Macy's Mother's Day sale now. If your Mother's Day plans traditionally revolved around getting her gifts at Macy's, you might have to either pay more or look elsewhere. The company plans to close about 150 underperforming stores over the next 3 years to instead concentrate on the luxury market, which has been outperforming regular Macy's stores. The company also owns Bloomingdale's and the cosmetics chain Blue Mercury. Macy's says it'll open up more of those locations in the coming months.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 on this Tuesday, February 27th. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Glad that you're with us on this this Tuesday. Got a lot of ground to cover. I wanna kick off this hour though by having a conversation that I think we need to have. I need to clear some things up here a little bit. I shouldn't probably get irritated when I see the things like this, but I do get irritated, and it's because I think that people misunderstand what my role is here. My role here is to bring you news and information and to give you my best judgment based on the experience that I have and my judgment about politics, which, by the way, I've been covering since I was a pup. I get up every day and spend hours, preparing for this show, and doing my research, and then I take the research and what's going on, and then I try to tap into knowledge of having covered Washington for some 31 years, having covered political races. Gosh, I've lost track of them. How many I've covered. And so I feel like I bring to the table here a depth of knowledge, right? And so people, when I start to give you an analysis of a situation, sometimes people get irritated by the analysis. And I'll give you an example. I got on X here a guy named John, no picture. I don't know what John looks like because he's one of those people on X who doesn't want to put their picture up there. And he says, "Hey, Brian, maybe you should be Nikki Haley's campaign manager. You're always telling us how good she would probably do if she ran as an independent. I'm a fan of yours, and thank you for that. I appreciate it, but please shut up already on this issue." All right. So to review, if you weren't with us yesterday, I was recounting what had happened in South Carolina, where Nikki Haley got her butt kicked, and just like she's going to get her butt kicked in Michigan, and like she's going to get her butt kicked by Donald Trump on March 5th. And I talked about that, but I mean, the question that keeps coming to my mind as somebody who's been covered in politics for a long time is, look, everybody else has figured out that they don't have a chance against Donald Trump. Why is she hanging in there? And why is she saying things like, "I'm going to be here through Super Tuesday"? And so the question was, what is the end game for Nikki Haley? And there were other comments out there. Other people were asking the same question. I ran a soundbite from Ari Fleischer, an astute observer of politics for a long time, man who was in the game, for many years, saying that he thought Nikki Haley was setting herself up to run as an independent, something that I have mentioned as a possibility here on this show. And so I went through the whole thing and I said, now, if she runs as an independent, so I said these very words. I said, look, I'm going to step back and try to look at this objectively and put aside my personal wants and desires in this case to give you an analysis of what her game might be. Now, I think for our listening audience, that's valuable information. Now, I'm not saying that I'm agitating for this or that I think that this would be a great plan. I'm just saying, let's try to get into the head of Nikki Haley and see what her plan is, because, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Why go through a primary in your home state and get trounced? Why would you go through that? What's the upside to that? And why would you say, no matter what, I'm going to stay in the race until Super Tuesday? What is interesting about that? I put several things together, here, there, and yon, and I tried to paint you a picture of what I thought that was. And what I think is that she might be thinking about an independent run. Okay, then the next question becomes, well, if it is going to be an independent run by Nikki Haley, what are her chances? And what I said, and I want you to listen to the whole thing, okay? Because some people, remember what Phil Valentine used to say about Van Gogh listeners, people who listen with one ear? I think what Phil was talking about, and I've noticed this over the years, is you say something that catches somebody's ear wrong, and they go off on a tangent about that thing, and they stop listening to the rest of what you're saying. And so they go off half-cocked about what you said. Again, I'm going to say, I'm not agitating for this. It's not my desire that this happens. I'll just say for the record, anybody want to know, I'm voting for Donald Trump in November. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I believe he's the right guy for the job. But I'm curious, as somebody who covers politics, as to why Nikki Haley is staying in here. So if she does go as an independent, does she have a chance? And I said she has no chance as a Republican to get the nomination and win as a Republican. But there are pathways for Nikki Haley if she decides to run as an independent. Now, that's what I said, and I stand by it. And I think anybody who, if you look at some really smart people out there, they're slowly but surely coming to a sort of that realization about Nikki that, she could, as an independent, potentially cobble together a few disenchanted Republicans, a great number of people on the Democratic side of the equation who do not want to vote for Joe Biden for, if they got any other option, and people in the middle who that Nikki Haley might appeal to. And she appealed to them, and we know in New Hampshire, she appealed to them, a great number of them. In Iowa, she appealed to a great number of them in her home state of South Carolina. So could she cobble together? And remember, in a 3 or 4 way race, you don't have to have 50%. If you can get in a 4-way race, you only need what? In a real 4-way race, you only need 26% to prevail. So is there a pathway? Yes, under that scenario, yes, there is a pathway. But here's the larger point here. People get irritated because I'm talking about this. I just think I need to explain to you what I think my responsibility here as host of this program is. I do not believe it's my responsibility to tell you what you want to hear. Now, most of the time, you and I are going to be in agreement, and I think probably if I could sit down with John, he would find out that we're in vast agreement on about 99.9% of the things. But there are a lot of people in talk radio who will just feed you red meat, just red meat, red meat, red meat, red meat, red meat, because they know that's what you want to hear. Right? Well, I'm going to tell you stuff that we agree on a lot. But on occasion, I also need to tell you things that I believe are truth. It's not my job to tell you what you want to hear. It's my job to tell you the truth as best I can discern it, based on the facts that are available and then the analysis that I bring to it as someone who's covered politics most of my adult life. So that's where I am, and that's what I'm all about. Now, if you don't want to hear, things like that, then I don't know what to tell you. But I don't think it's wrong of me to come to you as the host of this program and tell you, things, just the things that you agree and want to hear. I need to sometimes tell you things that you don't want to hear because I think you need to be fully informed. Does that make sense? Because I'm telling you right now, this is one of the things that I really worry about, is that when I tell you things that my experience tells me could happen, and I bring you the reasons why I think this could happen, if you don't want to hear it, I don't know what to tell you, because maybe this is not the show for you. Because I'm always going to try to tell you the things as best I can discern the truth, and not just fill you up with stuff so you can pound the table. Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. Well, we're going to agree most of the time. And so I guess what I'm going to try to tell you is, going forward in this election season, I'm going to bring you things that are not things that I'm agitating for or that I want to happen, but things that I think are potentially out there that could happen. Why? Because I want you to see around the corner, to see what's coming down the pike. Now, look, here's what I will say to sort of wrap this all up in a big bow. All right. I don't think that the way things look today are the way they're going to be in November. I think there are myriad scenarios that could happen. Right now, we're talking a lot about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. But there's a ton of people out there. I'll tell you who they are. Donald Trump is one of them. Nikki Haley is one of them. Anybody who's looking at the situation right now, you have to wonder, is Joe Biden actually going to be the Democrats' nominee? there's a ton of people out there, and I'm among them, who doesn't believe that Joe Biden is going to be the ultimate nominee when we get to the elections in November. All right? So when we talk about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, that's a scenario that may not exist when we get to Election Day. I want you to know what the other scenarios are. It seems likely to me that that Republicans are going to pick Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. And if he is, I will vote for him. I will gladly cast my vote for Donald Trump. But there are other scenarios out there that we need to be aware of. One of them is there could be another third-party candidate, and it might be Nikki Haley. It might be that you have Biden, Trump, Nikki Haley, and Kennedy, and maybe a few other smattering of other minor candidates. And that changes the equation. But one thing that I'm certain of is when we get to November, it's probably not going to look like we think it's going to look today. And that if you're looking at this election as saying, it's going to be Biden versus Trump, man, I'm telling you, there's a pretty good chance that it's not going to be that way by the time you actually go to cast your vote. So I feel like it's my job to share with you what I think is out there and what is potentially going to happen. And one of the things that people are slowly right now starting to come to the realization is that Nikki Haley is staying in this race because she will come, I think, at some point, and somebody will come to her and say, Nikki, you can't win as a Republican, but you might be able to win if you run as an independent. There is a pathway for Nikki Haley if she runs as an independent. Now, she says today she has no interest in doing that, and maybe that's the end of it. And if so, great, we move on. But I think if you're Nikki Haley and you've put this much effort into it, and somebody comes to you and says, here is a way you can become the president of the United States, I think she's going to have a hard time walking away from that. That's my belief. So we need to understand that the election that we see happening today is probably not what we're going to be voting for. I don't know exactly what form it's going to take by the time we get to November, but I believe it's possible we may have a third and a fourth and a fifth candidate, and that this is going to be an election in which you can become president perhaps with only 26% of the vote. It's entirely possible. And the one thing I'm pretty sure of is that we don't really know who's going to be the Democrat nominee at this point. So when I'm playing these games, please don't think that I'm pushing that agenda. I'm not. I feel it's my job to give you an outline of the things that are out there that could happen. And again, I don't feel like it's my job to tell you the things that you want to hear. I think it's my job to tell you the things that I believe are truthful as best I can discern it, based on my experience and my judgment. And if that's not what you want, okay, John, I'm sorry that I irritated you. Now I've spent all this time talking about a guy who has 8 followers on X, and I probably shouldn't have done that. But I do hear this a lot from people. Why are you talking about so-and-so? I don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear potentially what might happen? It's wrong of me to bring this to you. I think it's my job to bring it to you. So that's where I'm at, just so you know going forward what you're going to hear on this program. If you have some thoughts, send it to me on X, along with John, all right? It's Brian at 997. It's 21 past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Hey, if you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltzko are the two guys you need to be talking to right now. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, fair prices. They can build your new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That's the Stoltzko difference. Now, you can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is the key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So listen, why don't you go to their website, stoltzco.com. That's STOLTZCO.com. stoltzco.com, and take a look at some of the things they've done for other people. And then you're probably going to want to give them a call. Here's the number, 615-622-5992. Stoltzco, where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. Learn more at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com.
"15-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, an autistic teenager still missing since Sunday in Sumner County, an infant death in Tennessee, and a rideshare claiming self-defense in a fatal shooting." Those stories coming up. 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for Mac Morey's wide, wild world of sports. And now here, without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. The one, the only, Mac Morey, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Woo!
The one and the only. That is true.
Say that again.
The one and the only. That's true, Brian.
Yeah, that's right.
That's no lie.
You can only be you.
Okay, so today we're doing, we're kind of starting our combine coverage because players will start testing, running 40s, doing all the different metric stuff tomorrow. But today in Indianapolis, we had some front office interviews. We had some head coaching interviews, and Titans general manager Rand Carthon spoke to the media. And you can always get, these guys are going to be real cupcake, right? Real cookie cutter and just kind of cliches all around, but you can pick out a couple tidbits here and there and kind of get an idea. Okay, this is what they're thinking. Maybe this is a direction that we're headed here as we get further into draft season, free agency. Remember, guys, the Titans are atop the list in the NFL as far as cap space. They've got a lot of money to work with. There's a lot of flexibility in this offseason for pretty much brand new GM, only one season under his belt with the Titans and overall in his career, and a brand new first-time head coach in Brian Callahan that they just hired from the Cincinnati Bengals. So a lot of excitement here. So Rand Carthon talked at the beginning of the interview about the strengths of the draft. He said, I think we're really deep at receiver in this draft and O-line as a whole, which are two areas that we're going to be focusing on. And then later on, he talks about the offense and how there's going to be a little bit of a difference as far as scouting's concerned for Brian Callahan's team rather than there would be for Mike Vrabel-led offense, because Brian Callahan is an offensive-minded head coach. He was the offensive coordinator with Cincinnati, and they had some prolific offenses. They really moved the ball. And so Carthon goes in and says, you guys watch the Bengals. They had 3 wide receivers that did a lot of the production. So right there in just 2 quotes, he's talking about receivers. This is a deep receiver draft. We need receivers. What did Carthon do a lot? What did Callahan do a lot? He used his receivers. And that's true. I mean, they have the 2 most productive wide receivers arguably in the NFL, with a wide receiver 3 that would be a wide receiver 2 on most other teams. Right. So that's going to be a focus. And this is a great draft to have that as a focus. Now, Titans come into this draft. I talked a few weeks ago, maybe a week or so ago, about where they're positioned in this draft. Number 7 overall as far as their pick right now. And they've got some flexibility. I mentioned the money. I mentioned that they've got a lot of needs. And this isn't necessarily a Super Bowl win now team this next year. This is kind of a rebuild, maybe a competitive rebuild, which is a term that's been thrown around for lots of teams, which, whatever, fine. It's a rebuild. But Carthon said, the goal is to build this team into a consistent winner. He said, quote, the way you do that is build it through the draft, and off of that, you need draft picks to do that. I would definitely be willing to listen to trades, but it has to make sense for us. So that's him talking about that 7th overall pick, and he's saying, listen, I'd be willing to move off it. They have 8 overall picks right now in the whole draft, but that number 7 overall right there, he's saying, you know what, I'm going to be listening to trades. I'm going to be listening to offers. You know, I like having 8 picks, but I wouldn't mind maybe having 10, maybe having 9 or 10 move down a few picks, gain some more flexibility. So that's just some things to watch here. Wide receivers and a trade down in that first round, which I know just overall most fan bases of most teams going trading down in the first round. That's just not exciting, right? That's not what you want to hear. But getting more picks and being able to gather more assets and more young talent in what is a loaded draft, not just an offensive line wide receiver. There's a bunch of really good football players in this draft. And maybe getting another pick or 2 could be beneficial for the Titans' future. So a lot of things to watch here as we get closer to April.
I saw this quote from it was in the Tennessean. Said he was asked about left tackle or wide receiver. You need both, right? Mm-hmm. Which has the highest? What is your greatest need? He said, I'll always lean when all things are equal, guys, for guys who can score touchdowns that tend to make more of an impact. So I mean, again, it shows that he's an offensive-minded coach. And he's leaning toward, you're right. I think he's looking for wide receivers. Of course, we do need O-line. There's no doubt about it. But, I think that's interesting. Now, I guess the question is if we go down, give up our first pick, but pick up additional picks, are there still going to be wide receivers available out there? And your sense of it is yes.
Absolutely. And as far as like the hit rate, as far as like picking a position that does productive and is as a quality player in the NFL, the hit rate is what they call it. The hit rate's pretty much the same for first round and second round wide receivers. You've got a pretty good chance either way if you're picking the top 2 rounds for a wide receiver, and they are loaded this year with wide receivers in this draft. Wow. Loaded. It's going to be one of the best wide receiver drafts we've ever seen, and the Titans can get their pick wherever they want to. We'll see what they do. I'm really excited about it, and it's going to be a whole new roster come next year, a whole new team for the Tennessee Titans.
You're excited, I can tell. Yeah. And I think I was initially, maybe I thought, well, I'm not sure. You should, is Vrabel on the way out?
I know.
Who's going to be the new coach, and can they turn this thing around? Or are we just looking for several more seasons of rebuilding before we have something? I'm becoming more optimistic about the coming season.
It seems like they've picked a direction.
Yes.
And they're heading in that direction, and I think that's important.
Identity. You have to have that in the National Football League, and the Titans seem to be just spearheading towards offense, and I love that. I'm excited.
I like that they have a vision. All right, well, take off that snazzy sports cap, put on your news hat, because it's time for the news we got really excited about this. At 32 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock.
5:32, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 72 degrees. Got a wind advisory in effect until tomorrow at noon. That's for all of Middle Tennessee. Could see gusts of up to 45 miles an hour. Weather forecast, traffic report, headed your way, 5 minutes. Missing teenager in Tennessee, 15-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, still missing after being last seen Sunday in Sumner County. That was in the beach area of Hendersonville near Long Hollow Pike. He was last seen wearing all black. Channel 4's Danielle Ledbetter fills us in.
This is an expansive search, and it's only getting more and more desperate as more time passes. Right now, hundreds of first responders are on the ground searching for Sebastian, and all day long, we've seen them walking up and down the road, knocking on doors. We've seen canines and horses also aiding in this search as well. Now, law enforcement has told us that looking for a child with autism, it provides its own set of unique challenges, but they told us they're focusing on things that they know he likes and what his family has told them soothes them. So they were told his favorite song is Eye of the Tiger. So earlier this morning, a Tennessee state trooper was blasting that song in hopes that Sebastian would hear it and follow the music.
Public not yet encouraged to help, but law enforcement says you can help by looking at any surveillance footage you have. Officials may open up that search to the public a little bit later. And it took 2 days for them to put out an Amber Alert. The TBI says that they reserve that here in Tennessee for the most serious missing children cases. They said they have learned some additional information leading them to believe that this child could be in imminent danger. And staying in Tennessee, a baby shot and killed at a home in Clarksville. This happened on Sunday. Officers arrived at that home on Citadel Drive just after noon to find that baby dead on the scene. That investigation remains active. And that is the latest news. Traffic, weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you about King and Associates Insurance in Brentwood. Have been in the business for some 25 years out there as an independent agency, which is what you want. Listen, when you say independent, what does that mean? Well, it means they're not wedded to one product, that they can shop around for a bunch of different things and find that insurance policy that meets the need that you have, not just some one-size-fits-all taking a square peg and shoving it into a round hole to make it fit. No, they'll get you something that actually meets your needs. So you get, and this is the bottom line, more bang for your insurance dollar. The other thing I love about an independent agency is if you call this number, and you should call this number, 615-329-8121, you're going to get a hold of a real person. You're not going to get some phone tree. You're not going to get some recording. You're not going to be on hold for hours trying to work through whatever issue you have. You're going to get a real person who will make the steps necessary to solve whatever it is you need to know and solve your problem. I mean, that's good. They are the kings of the multi-policy discount, 10, 20, 25, 35%. Some savings can be made if you bundle. They love to do that. Listen, get your royal review with King & Associates today. Just log on to tkinginsurance.com. That's kinginsurance.com. King Assurance and Associates, royal treatment and absolutely great rates. It is 39 minutes, make it 40 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. We're so glad you're with us here on this Tuesday. Let's get moving because we got some data we need to push through. I'll start out with some numbers. The numbers are looking increasingly good for Donald Trump, really looking good. I found a story here that I think sort of adds that all up. It's a pretty good story from Breitbart. Let me run through it. And the headline is, Donald Trump expands lead over Joe Biden nationally. I do feel that looking at the numbers, we are starting to see people sort of solidify their positions for the coming election. Former President Donald Trump expanding his lead over President Joe Biden nationally, recent polls indicate. Rasmussen Reports poll released Tuesday found Trump leading Biden in a head-to-head matchup by 6 points. It was Trump 47, Biden 41. Another 9% support some other candidate, 2% unsure. Notably, in that scenario, Trump takes a double-digit lead with independents, boasting a 16-point advantage over the incumbent. The survey also asked respondents who they would support in a presidential matchup when third-party candidates are included. And again, in this scenario, Trump leads 43 to 37. Trump 43, Biden 37. 12% chose Robert F. Kennedy Jr. 5% support some other candidate. 3% remain unsure. In that setup, Trump still has the advantage among independents, leading Biden by 10 points. So that's pretty good. So there we have it. Then another survey, Harris X found Trump leading Biden by 9 points nationally. Among all voters, it's 47 for Trump, 38 for Biden. And again, in that particular poll, Trump leads Biden among independents by 10 points. So those numbers are starting to look good. I mean, again, there are you can find other polls that have it tighter, but I mean, all of a sudden it seems that the polls that are dropping most recently tend to show Trump expanding his lead over Biden, which again leads me to wonder, will Biden actually be the nominee? How long will Democrats hang on to the campaign that is falling further and further behind? And as Americans continue to find that they have no confidence that this guy could do another term. And then behind that, okay, if he can't do another term, if he were to get reelected another term, how long could he last? And ultimately, we'd end up with Kamala. Yeah, a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that he's not the guy. Now, I think this is interesting. And again, remember, when we talk about elections, we don't want to focus on general election numbers because that's the popular vote. I mean, it's interesting. It's a nice metric, give you some idea of where things are. But what you care about is the fact that in an election, some states are going to be red and some states are going to be blue. And then you got these battleground states that are purple. Here's how it's looking for Trump according to a couple of those rundowns, all right? A recent Bloomberg News morning poll shows Trump leading Biden in 7 out of 7 swing states. You ready for this? Again, remember, you do well in the swing states, you're going to win the election. Trump leads Biden by 3 in Arizona, 8 in Georgia. He leads Biden by 5 in Michigan. We remember that number because we're going to come back to it. He leads Biden by 5 in Michigan. Nevada, Trump 48, Biden 40. He leads by 8. North Carolina, Trump leads by 10 points. Pennsylvania, it's a little tighter. According to this poll, Trump leads by 3 in Pennsylvania. Wisconsin, I've got a couple of new polls on that. Let's see, I got a poll here that says Trump is leading in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, in Wisconsin by 3. This has Wisconsin by 5. Now, if you add Robert F. Kennedy into the mix, Trump's numbers go up. In other words, what that means is Robert Kennedy takes from both candidates, but he takes more from Biden than he does for Trump. And so the numbers only improve when you look at a third, fourth party candidates. We got really there are 5 that you count, but the biggest one among them is Kennedy. I'll give you an example. When you just look at Trump versus Biden in Arizona, it's Trump plus 3. But if you look at Arizona, when you add Kennedy into the mix, it becomes Trump plus 8. See what I'm saying? When you put Kennedy into the mix, it helps Trump. It hurts Biden. So, I mean, bring on all the Kennedy that you want because it's not going to hurt Trump at this moment. All right. So there's that. Again, let's focus on Michigan. Votes are going to be tallied up tonight. Listen, I'll tell you right now how it's going to come out. Nikki Haley's going to get trounced in Michigan, just like she got trounced in South Carolina, like she got trounced in Nevada, like she got trounced in New Hampshire and in Iowa. She's going to get trounced. And then she says she's going to be in it till March 5th. But the reason why I think it's interesting to look at what's going on in Michigan is that Democrats are going to have the option of voting for Biden, but they're going to be urged to vote uncommitted. In other words, your options are you vote for, Biden or, I don't know, some of the other minor Democrat candidates nobody's paying attention to. Or if you want to protest your selection, you can vote uncommitted. And so a lot of people in the state of Michigan are being encouraged to vote uncommitted. All right. So again, remember, this is the primary, Democrat primary. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. While Biden is expected to comfortably win the primary, the focus on the November battleground state has intensified amid backlash from the Arab American and Muslim voters toward Biden's handling of the war and the resulting humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Some local leaders are urging Michigan Democrats to vote uncommitted to protest the administration's backing of Israel and its military campaign. You may not know it. This is true. Michigan is home of the largest percentage of Arab Americans in the United States, many concentrated in Dearborn, a city that is majority Arab American, led by an Arab American mayor and represented in Congress by Rashida Tlaib, the lone Palestinian American member of Congress, and both are backing the idea of having Democrats who disagree with the way Biden is handling the conduct of the situation between Israel and Gaza, have them vote as uncommitted. Now, it'll be interesting to see how much of the Michigan vote tonight on the Democrat side of the equation comes down on the side of uncommitted. If it's 2 or 3%, that is a disastrous outcome for Joe Biden in Michigan. And remember, you can't really, most people agree, you can't win the national election if you lose the state of Michigan. I mean, all pathways, it can be said of a lot of these battleground states, but we got polls that now suggest that Trump is leading Biden in Michigan by 5, but you cannot win the national election and get the electoral vote count that you need. You got to get to 270 without Michigan. Here's Sean Trendy, the guy who crunches numbers over at RealClearPolitics.com.
Yeah, if he doesn't win Michigan, it's pretty much over. And just because I laughed while you were saying that, because people are just in denial about this online, and just how dire things are. I don't think Trump has ever led in a Michigan poll in 2016 or 2020. Maybe Trafalgar had one at the end of 2016, but I mean, this is unprecedented. So Biden's in a world of hurt there. And if he's shedding Arab American voters because of his position in Israel, it is very, very difficult for him to win the presidency without Michigan.
I agree. I mean, I 100% agree. If you lose Michigan, you're going to lose. Now, see, this is what's making the Democrats crazy. They're beginning to really panic. He's not doing well in Michigan, and he's not doing well among black voters. Again, if he loses even a small number of black voters and Trump picks them up, it could be disastrous for Joe Biden. Here is David Axelrod. Again, we're listening to the Democrats talking among themselves. David Axelrod is sort of openly worrying here that Biden is going to lose enough black voters that it could be a real problem.
Look, he's polling, 21% among African-American voters here.
He's talking about Trump polling 21% in African-American voters, which is, I think, in the last election, I think he pulled 12%. So he's up with black voters, and this is concerning David Axelrod.
Biden got 88% of that vote back in 2020, and this is going to be a marginal race. So this is a concern. And yes, black men, and particularly younger black men, are the ones that are drifting away. Some may vote for Trump, some may not vote at all. And this has to be a concern for the Biden campaign. Trump knows that, and by the way, I think it may impact on his vice presidential choice. And there's a lot of talk about Tim Scott as a vice presidential candidate. I think if he picks Tim Scott, it's partly because he recognizes this would be helpful in kind of sealing in that portion of the African American vote that he now has.
Well, there you go, and so that I sort of think that David Axelrod is onto something. Again, he's a Democrat, and what he's doing is he's sending up the flare to other Democrats. You know what? We're in trouble with Arab American voters. We're in trouble with black voters. I think he's in trouble with a larger group of Hispanic voters than they realize. And I think all of these things are going to help Trump. Again, as the big picture, 30,000-foot picture, I think the picture is getting better and better every day right now for Donald Trump. All right, we'll leave it there. 51 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you'll know how much it costs before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month. And now listen what you get for $69. You get unlimited office visits, unlimited, free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, how this might help you is if maybe you have a high deductible insurance plan. Well, this could save you and your family a lot of money over the course of a year. At Grace Point, they take time with the patients. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded waiting rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. So give them a call, 599-6868, to schedule a visit. You know, I'm in the midst of my journey to lose some weight with the help from the folks at Restoration Wellness Med Spa here in Lebanon, or nearby in Lebanon. I did lose a lot of weight last year. The truth is, I went through some health issues, and I lost quite a bit of weight. But guess what? When I got through those issues, started feeling better, the appetite returned, and, well, the weight is returning along with it, right? Well, you don't want it to get out of control, so, I've decided to do something. Now, the truth is I've never taken on a weight loss client before. But I really like the way that Carly and Jamie and the folks at Restoration Wellness Med Spa approach all this. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. They take the time to look at your history. They did with me. They talked to me about my lifestyle, and they customized a plan that best fits my need. It's a customized treatment plan. So, I'll be sharing with you in the days ahead. I got a weigh-in coming in pretty soon. Why don't you do what I did? Set up an appointment to develop your customized treatment plan at Restoration Wellness Med Spa. Be a part of the more than 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results. Whether your goal is to lose stubborn body fat or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness has a solution for you. Take advantage of the newest ideas in weight loss management. Here's the number, 615-470-8124. To learn more, just go to their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
.601, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 73 degrees right now in Nashville. It is a windy evening. Wind advisory in effect in all of the mid-state until noon tomorrow. Traffic report, complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. A missing teenager in Tennessee, 15-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, is still missing. Last seen Sunday in Sumner County around the beach area of Hendersonville near Long Hollow Pike. He was last seen wearing all black. Here's Channel 4's Danielle Ledbetter.
That Amber Alert went out, and it's just showing you how desperate this search is becoming for Sebastian Rogers, especially now that the sun is starting to set as well. Now let's take a look at his picture again. He's only 15 years old and has some form of autism. He was last seen on Sunday wearing all black, and this search, it's an expansive search. All day long, we've seen law enforcement walking up and down the roads, canvassing, knocking on doors. We've seen canines, horses, we've seen drones and helicopters and things like that, just showing you again how expansive this search is.
The public not encouraged to help today. Law enforcement says you can help by looking at any surveillance footage that you may have. They are open and considering opening up the search to the public. It took 2 days for them to put out an Amber Alert. The TBI says they reserve Amber Alerts for the most serious missing children cases. They said they have learned some additional information leading them to believe that the child is in imminent danger. In the nation's capital, congressional leaders appear hopeful they could avoid a partial government shutdown later this week as they leave a meeting with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris in the Oval Office today. House Speaker Mike Johnson also held an additional one-on-one meeting with President Biden, where he tells reporters outside the White House that he emphasized his priority of ensuring border security provisions that were included in any deal moving forward.
When I showed up today, my purpose was to express what I believe is the obvious truth, and that is that we must take care of America's needs first. When you talk about America's needs, you have to talk first about our open border.
Some possible legislation here in the volunteer state. Yesterday, the Tennessee House passed House Bill 1605, which would allow certain flags to be displayed in classrooms and on school properties in the state. After two amendments, it passed 70-24, that vote. The only flags acceptable in Tennessee schools would be the United States flag, the Tennessee state flag, city or government flags, official college or university flags, military flags, or a flag that represents an Indian tribe. Flags representing sexual orientations would not be allowed in classrooms. And a group of senators led by Senator Tammy Duckworth and Patty Murray are demanding a vote on their bill to federally protect in vitro fertilization and other fertility treatments. Ike Ejaji.
Senator Tammy Duckworth says the Access to Family Building Act, first introduced in 2022, establishes a statutory right for people to access assisted reproductive technology. Senator Duckworth says the Alabama Supreme Court ruling is based on extreme ideology and not medical science.
The very people who claim to be defending family values are actively trying to enact policies that would actually prevent Americans from creating those families.
Senator Duckworth's bill was blocked by Senate Republicans back in 2022.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, it's 8 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. We're into the fourth and final hour of the show on this Tuesday, February 27th. We're glad that you're with us. Boy, it's still a very pleasant 72 degrees. I mean, that's where I set my thermostat. So, that's about as good as it gets right there.
Balmy.
It's room temperature outside.
Yep.
That's what I like. Yeah, I mean, really, when you consider that we're in the last throes of February, 72 degrees at what, 6 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of February? I mean, end of February. That's plenty good.
If not a little odd.
Yeah, it is. Do you feel like? I mean, I sort of feel like we're going to get sucker punched.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, well, just take tomorrow, for instance. I mean, we're going to start out in the 60s, and then by like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, it's going to be in the 40s. So,
I know.
But then it'll bounce right back in a couple days and be
That's
back
right.
in the 70s again.
I know.
You just never know.
Yeah, it's that time of year. Very unpredictable. I was just reading a story here that caught my eye out of the Texas Panhandle. Now, for those of you who are longtime listeners to the show, you know that I have an affinity for the Texas Panhandle, and I spent some of the early days of my television career in Amarillo, Texas, and they're going through some tough stuff there, not only in the Texas Panhandle, but throughout the Midwest. I haven't heard much about this. Widening Texas wildfire doubled inside Tuesday and prompted evacuation orders in at least one small town as strong winds, dry grass, and unseasonably warm highs fuel the blaze in the state's panhandle. Governor Abbott has issued a disaster declaration for 60 counties as the largest fire burned more than, are you ready for this? This is a big fire, 300 square miles. That's according to the Texas A&M Forest Service. That's more than twice its size since the fire started on Monday. And they're asking people to be very careful, of course, with fire. So the town that is being ordered to be evacuated is a town called Canadian, which is on the Canadian River. And
that's weird.
Yeah, I know. It's Canadian, but it's a beautiful little town. I used to always love to go to Canadian. In fact, in Amarillo, when you live in Amarillo, you go to Canadian in the fall because they have trees. The rest of the town didn't have any trees, or none to speak of. I mean, they have some in the cities, but they were planted. Naturally, there are no trees. It's just, big open area, big flat country. So people would go to Canadian to look at the leaves in the fall. If you were a leaf peeper.
Was the fall like in December?
No, yeah, it'd be late November, right? October, probably after Thanksgiving. I don't know when it turns, but it was. I drove over there a couple of times. I got to tell you, when I was in the Texas, and I just tell a personal story. When I was in the Texas Panhandle, I had the greatest job I think probably I've ever had. I was working in Amarillo, and I was covering police and fire and city hall and the courts. I mean, I was all over the place. I was covering some, for that little community. I was covering the big stories of the day there. And they called me in one day and they said, "Hey, Brian, we want you to take on a new assignment. We want you to become the area reporter." And see, as it turns out, in the television market that Amarillo is, the Texas Panhandle is about the size of the state of Ohio. And they did some studies and they said, well, there are as many people in all of these little cities and towns, little communities around Amarillo, as there are in the city of Amarillo. And we got all our assets focused on Amarillo, and we're not really paying enough attention to these communities all over this wide area that they call the Texas Panhandle. Places like Borger and Pampa and Dalhart and Perryton and Canadian. And so they said, we want you to start covering those stories. I said, oh, well, I've got a pretty good job. I really like what I'm doing. I'm covering, really big stories here in the city. I know, but here's what we want you to know. We're going to give you a helicopter. I said.
That changed your tune, didn't
I said, really? A helicopter? That sounds like fun. And so I became the area reporter. And literally, I was I guess probably about 22 or 23 years old. And I had a helicopter on speed dial. I mean, is that the greatest job ever?
That's pretty cool.
I mean, you're sitting at home and you find out something's going on. You get a phone call from somebody. You say, oh, well, I need to get I need to call up the helicopter. And the pilot became a very dear friend of mine. I still talk to him every once in a while. And his name was Donnie, and he was a hell of a helicopter pilot. I'll tell you that for sure. Learned how to fly a helicopter by crop dusting. So this was a guy who would fly a helicopter 120 miles an hour, 10 inches off the ground, and it felt completely comfortable doing so. Didn't faze him in the least. And so I would call Donnie and I'd say, Donnie, get the chopper out. We need to go. And it literally is about 5 miles over to the hangar where the chopper was. And by the time I would get there, he'd have it pulled out. The rotors were going, and I would jump in and we'd fly off to go cover whatever story we felt like we needed to cover. They never really told me too much. Said, fly the helicopter when you need to fly the helicopter. And I did, and I had more fun. But it's why I have such an affinity for this particular part of the country, is because I literally know every square inch of this entire Texas Panhandle almost like it's the back of my hand. I know these little towns, and it's such a special place. A lot of people look at the Texas Panhandle and they go, not much there. I found it to be really beautiful in a much more sort of wide open prairie kind of way. You can see the horizon forever. Anyway, that's why when I see stories like this, I know the town of Canadian. And when you talk about 300 square miles of wildfire, that's a serious thing. And by the way, not just in the Texas Panhandle, in Nebraska, they say that a mower sparked a prairie fire that has burned a swath of grassland the size of the city of Omaha. So that's a lot of that. So and apparently it's all over. I was getting the update from my sister. They have a family ranch out there. And they say, they say that the ranch is okay. So good. But family ranch is okay. All right, enough of that. Hunter Biden had a deposition scheduled, I think, for Thursday. Yes, it will be. No, I'm sorry, Wednesday. Tomorrow, Hunter Biden will be deposed behind closed doors as Republican lawmakers continue their efforts to impeach his father, President Joe Biden, ahead of the 2024 general election. This from the Washington Examiner. The private deposition was a change of strategy from the president's son and his legal team. For months, Biden said he would only field questions regarding his business dealings and what his father may or may not have known about in a public hearing to avoid selective leaks of his testimony. But after defying a congressional subpoena for testimony and facing the potential of contempt of Congress charges, Biden finally agreed to sit for the hours-long interview under oath. Now, they just got through interviewing James Biden. This interview will not be recorded on video like the deposition of James Biden, but James, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, James Comer, says they will release a full transcript of Hunter Biden's interview as soon as possible. Furthermore, the Oversight Committee plans to hold public hearings with the president's son at some point in the future, which will be a big dog and pony show. I mean, nothing will happen there. It'll all be in the deposition. And I'm telling you, this is going to be interesting. It'll be a very long, detailed, and you may hear in the transcript a lot of things like, I don't recall. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I can't. No, I'm sorry. I just don't have any recollection of that. There's going to be a lot of that because, that's what they do when they don't want to answer questions they can't recall. I'll give you an example of that. Today, the divorce attorney for Nathan Wade was cross-examined about when he believed there had been a relationship between Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade. So this guy's name, I forget, Bradley. And he got pulled to the stand and apparently at some point had led those attorneys who were bringing this case against Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade, saying that they had a relationship that impacted and that there was all kinds of impropriety going on because of this relationship. Well, apparently, when this guy testified before, it led them to believe that he had advanced knowledge of when the relationship started. and he had answered some questions that suggested he knew when it started. Well, they finally got him back on the stand today, and they tried to pin him down on that. And it turned out he's now saying, oh, I didn't know when it started. I was just sort of guessing. It was my supposition, but I don't really know when it started. And there's a lot of I don't know. You want to hear some of it?
So you knew, as the counsel for a defendant in this case, that Ms. Merchant was asking you specifically about the knowledge that you had regarding the timing of the relationship between Wade and Ms. Willis, correct?
I mean, based on this, yes, I see what was asked.
And in response to that, you answered directly on your own what you now claim to be speculation, right?
That's correct.
So I ask you one more time before I move to the next part of this. Why would you speculate when she was asking you a direct question about when the relationship started?
I have no answer for that.
Except for the fact that you do, in fact, know when it started, and you don't want to testify to that in court. Overruled. That's the best explanation, isn't it?
This is completely argumentative.
That's the true explanation, because you don't want to admit it in court, correct?
No, I have no direct knowledge of when the relationship started.
I'm not going to go back through that again. But if you didn't know, and you were asked specifically as this exhibit shows, maybe you can explain why you wouldn't say, I don't know.
Is that a question? You're asking me a question to answer?
Definite question.
State that again. I apologize.
If you're being asked, as we've just gone through with this text message from Ms. Merchant,
yes,
as the attorney for a co-defendant,
yes,
and she's asking you about the relationship, and she's clearly asking you about the timing, why wouldn't you just have said in response, I don't know when it started?
I don't know why I didn't say I don't know.
That cracks me up. There's a great answer, but save that one, guys, for when you get, asked a tough question by the missus. Why did that happen? I don't know. I don't know why I don't know. I don't know. No, I mean, that's just, I don't know why I didn't say I don't know. Well, there may be a lot of that kind of stuff when Hunter Biden testifies tomorrow. This is one of those things where it's going to be a pretty good, I think, transcripts can be rather dry, and this one could be long and halting, and a lot of the stuff like what you just heard, it's going to take a lot to pull anything out of Hunter Biden. I think it'll be interesting to see exactly, for example, how many times he says, I don't know, I can't recall, and then how many times he says, on the advice of counsel, I declined to answer that question, citing his Fifth Amendment rights during the deposition. 21 past the hour now of 6 o'clock. When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of times homeowners pretend they don't want to see the warning signs when you're talking about things like waterproofing or foundation repair. I can understand why you might be hesitant. It could be, now here's what it could be. It could be something big, and you really do need to fix it. Could be a small problem now that will become bigger over time, or it could be nothing at all. Bottom line is, you don't know, and you don't want to be sold something that you don't need. What you need is somebody who's above board, who's honest, who's just going to give it to you straight and tell you what you need to do, and that's the folks at United Structural Systems. They have over 25,000 satisfied residential customers. Now, here's what will happen. They will come out to your house, they'll assess your situation, they'll give you their best advice, and they'll say, this is what you should do, and if you decide to go forward, you will, you will not have to pay a penny until the job is done, and you are completely satisfied. And they have many, many, many satisfied customers. At USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at ussTN.com. That's ussTN.com. Or call this number, 615-488-7855. By the way, you just heard that promo for the event we have going on March 5th, which is a week from today. I just was on the phone earlier today with Dan Mandis, my boss, my esteemed boss, and we were working out all the details. So here's how it's going to go down. I'm going to take the show on the road on that Tuesday, which will start at 3 o'clock from the Nashville Palace. We'll be there early, and then the official event really kicks off at 6. But I mean, I think it's going to be, if it's like last time, people are going to be wandering in, between, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll be doing the show out there, and then everybody will start to wander in. And then at 6 o'clock, we'll all be there by that time. I think some will be there earlier. Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, and me will all be there. And it's going to be a great event. Listen, it is March 5th. It is Super Tuesday. Everybody's going to be looking for results as they come in. And the way it feels to me right now, and I've seen some polls that suggest that if everything goes well for Donald Trump, and every expectation is that it will go well for Donald Trump, he could potentially clinch the nomination on Super Tuesday. If not, he's going to be very close. So there you have that, and that'll be great. And so, if you're looking for some place to come and watch the results of Super Tuesday, and hang out with people that you like, people who see the world sort of like you do, come on down to the Nashville Palace. It's a free event, doesn't cost you a penny to get in, but your food is on you because we didn't take you to Ray's. Besides, I know how you eat, and I can't afford you. So it's not going to be on me. It's not going to be on the station because they're not even going to feed me. Wow. They learned a long time ago, don't feed Wilson. He eats too much. No, but I mean, the food's on you, but it's a free event otherwise to get in the door. But you do need to go to 997WTN.com and RSVP so we can have a sense of how many people are going to show up. I think it's going to be a blowout, quite frankly. Brought to you by the folks at Glock Store, Vis-a-vis Plumbing, and nutrition.com. So be sure that you come in and join us. And by the way, when you RSVP, you apparently are entered in some kind of contest for a massive hot chicken and barbecue tailgate package that can feed 25 people.
I don't even know if I know 25 people. That's a lot of food.
I mean, well, then you could win, and then you could feed me.
That'll about get it done.
Because I like hot chicken and barbecue. I really do. It's one of my favorite things. So it'll be a lot of fun. No, it's going to be a great event. Hang out with some of your friends. Hang out with your friend and radio buddy and the rest of the gang at the Nashville Palace. Again, you need to go to 997WTN.com to RSVP. The real festivities start at 6, but come early if you want, because I'm going to be there hanging out, and we can have ussies. Or Wheezies.
Wheezies, yeah.
Wheezies, yeah. And so be sure that you do that. So at 6:30 now on Super Talk. A message from Johnny Fleeman, who owns the Brass Lanterns and the Legends restaurants nearest you. They are celebrating their 35th year in service. That's right, 35 years serving Middle Tennessee and the surrounding areas. And they'd like to thank everyone and wish you, the best as they celebrate their 35 years. They want me to tell you about your daily specials for a limited time. Monday, fresh breaded chicken fingers with fries and coleslaw, only $8.99. Tuesday, slow-cooked 8-ounce prime rib and a side for $18.99. Wednesday, their choice sirloin with a side for only $8.99. Thursday is hamburger steak dinner for $8.99. Sundays, 3 pasta dinners, or pasta, that's the way they say it, I think, at $9.99. Remember, for over 35 years, the Brass Lantern and Legends restaurant have given you authentic, made-from-scratch, delicious recipes at affordable prices. That's really what they're all about. Good food at a reasonable price. And don't forget their daily lunch specials. Some of them start at $6.99. And also don't forget to pick up some of those delicious Johnny Fleeman products at your local grocery store. I think you're going to enjoy your next visit to the Brass Lantern or Legends restaurant nearest you. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Brian Wilson here, wrapping things up in the next 22 minutes before we hand it off to Mark Levin, the great one. He'll carry on throughout the evening, as he always does, and you'll learn something. You always do. I have a couple of news stories that are about the news, right? Remember Don Lemon, or Don Lemon? People call him Don Lemon. His name is Don Lemon. Used to be an anchor over at CNN until he got released. Listen to this story. Wow. I mean, good Lord. Don Lemon, the former primetime host of CNN, has agreed to a deal to separate from the network. Sources have exclusively tell The Wrap that Lemon, age 57, has agreed to a separation deal with CNN for approximately, what would you guess, Chris? What would you say?
I hope it's not, but I'll say $8 million.
Oh, you're way low.
Holy crap.
Make another guess.
15.
You're still way low.
25.
$24.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, which would be the full, complete pay from his final contract, which was extended 3.5 years from his ousting. He had just had his contract extended, and then they let him go, and it's going to cost them $24.5 million. Now, I saw a story that said that, no, that was wrong, but then I've seen several other stories that say, no, it's right. So maybe there's a quibble there, but it sounds like, Don Lemon's going to have a nice payday. Never have to work again a day in his life. $24.5 million with an M dollars. But it was worth it not to have to watch him anymore, I think. Then we told you the story the other day about Catherine Herridge. And I worked with Catherine Herridge at the Fox News Bureau in Washington, and I had great admiration for her reporting skills. I mean, she used to break stories, and I can't ever recall her ever having to walk one back. She had the reputation of when she said something, you could go to the bank on it. It was right. That is, everybody gets one wrong now and then, but she had a really good reputation for digging deep, breaking stories, and getting it right. She made her way from Fox over to CBS News and worked there for a number of years, and she did the same thing over there. She broke stories. Now, I don't know. I don't watch CBS News, so I don't really have a good feel for how much she got on the air, but I do follow her on social media, and the stuff that I was seeing from her showed she was continuing in that trend of breaking big stories. And she was doing the whole Hunter Biden thing, Hunter Biden laptop, and all of the investigations into Hunter Biden. And then they terminated her. Boom. It's out of the blue. Well, we're cutting back. You're gone. Bye. Seems like to me, if you wanted to cut some fat out of CBS, I bet you I can find a lot of people who weren't getting much on the air and weren't breaking stories, but they got rid of her. And then the story came out that the network had seized all of the files in her office, and she wasn't allowed to leave with any of them. And a lot of people started raising hell about that, because generally when a reporter leaves, you don't keep them from, taking their files with them. So here we go. CBS News has now returned hundreds of documents to terminated reporter Catherine Herridge. Herridge's termination, the network's retention of her files prompted considerable scrutiny, including from House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, who called the seizure of her files unprecedented and launched an inquiry into that whole matter. The Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television Radio Actors. I used to be a member of the American Federation of Television and Radio Actors, AFTRA. It's a union that covers TV reporters and puppeteers, apparently. On Monday, confirmed that a representative of the union had monitored the return of several boxes containing Catherine Herridge's reporting material from her CBS News office in Washington, and Herridge is now in the process of reviewing the contents that have been sent to her. We welcome CBS News' reversal when it came after SAG-AFTRA's intervention and widespread media coverage that underscored shared concerns about press freedom and the First Amendment. The resolution of this matter sends a strong message of protection for basic First Amendment principles. We further hope the public focus now returns to the continued efforts to support a press shield law that provides additional federal protection for journalists and their confidential sources. Herridge has not issued a public statement on the matter as of press time, but it sounds like she got her boxes back and all of the information that they contained. I will tell you that as, look, I mean, I always had my most sensitive stuff. If I was working on something and I had some stuff that I was working on, I never left it in the office. I mean, I'm telling you, I would never leave it there, because cleaning people come in and empty your trash, and who knows what else they're doing while they're there. if you had really sensitive stuff, you would never leave it in your office overnight. I always kept it in my briefcase, which I took home back and forth with me every day. It contained all kinds of stuff like, the things you need to do television and a computer and a laptop and all that. I always kept that and always took it back and forth. But if you really had sensitive information, do you think you would want to have it only in one place? No, I wouldn't. I'd put it on a nerd stick and hide the nerd stick somewhere. Nobody'd ever find it. But, I assume that Catherine Herridge, being alert, cunning, and sly, and a very good reporter, had taken some precautions. But it is good that they have returned her stuff. And as a rule, I mean, I guess it really, I can never recall anybody saying, I'm sorry, you're fired, and you can take nothing out of your office. It's all ours. And it wasn't that they said, we'll get it to you. They said, it's not yours, it's ours, and you can't leave with any of it. So I never had heard of that ever happening. And I'm glad that matter has been resolved. CBS should be ashamed of themselves. Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite probably turning over in their graves. Apple has canceled its electric car project. I know that's a diversion. We're going to a different direction now. Apple has canceled all plans to release an autonomous electric vehicle, according to Bloomberg. Apple had been working on the Apple Car for more than a decade and invested millions of dollars in development before deciding it was not a viable project. I always thought, hey, Apple makes a good product, and if they want to build a car, I guess that'd be interesting. I'd like to see what it is, they came up with. It's never been revealed. I never said, well, here's a potential look at what an Apple car might look like. Never saw that, but they were working on it, and they worked on it forever. And it was supposed to be autonomous. It was supposed to be different. But, major car companies right now, GM and Ford and Stellantis and I think a lot of the other car companies have decided that there just isn't a demand for electric cars. And so I think that Apple just saw the writing on the wall and said, well, if Ford and GM and Stellantis can't make them work, and they can't make a product that catches the American, then there just isn't a desire to have electric cars. Then what are we doing trying to build one? And I think they cut their losses. But I mean, they spent a lot of money on this, and a lot of people were hired. There will be layoffs. Some of the employees may be able to shift to other divisions within the company. Earlier this year, rumors that Apple Car project had been scaled back, but with Apple abandoning plans for a full driverless car with autonomous capabilities, Apple shifted focus to an electric vehicle with fewer self-driving features. The vehicle would have been on par with Tesla, perhaps. Apple was aiming to release the car sometime around 2026, but now they've decided completely to get out of it. Man, that's a deep investment to walk away from. How about that? Let me close out with this story. Many older people think that losing your train of thought or not being able to remember words is a sign that perhaps you are learning it. You are starting to lose it. I'm sorry. That has always been the thought. Well, if you can't think of that word or something eludes you, that's a sign of cognitive decline. But according to a new study done by the Baycrest Center for Geriatric Care, they say that one of the first studies to assess natural speech say that what is the best determiner of whether or not you are beginning to lose it and whether you are in cognitive decline is the speed at which you talk.
Anyway, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. I was just thinking, anyway.
That's right. Results indicate that changes in your speed of talking reflect changes in the brain. This suggests that talking speed should be tested as part of the standard cognitive assessment to help clinicians detect cognitive decline faster and help older adults support their brain health at that age.
He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it. Here's what drives the driver in the states that are affected. Here's what you can do, the drivers. For two reasons.
Isn't this the most painful thing ever? Listen to this. So while old people may fret about their need to pause to search for words, it happens. The new study suggests that that's just a normal part of aging. On the other hand, the slowing down of your speech, regardless of pausing, could be a stronger indicator of changes to brain health. Further research could examine whether speech speed is a true indicator of cognitive health and could therefore help clinicians detect cognitive decline as early as possible.
I'd like to be able to... Anyway. The idea that...
It is 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock.
I'm going to pass by.
Imagine what you could do and how you would feel if you or your loved ones had no pain. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley over at the Wellness Institute of Nashville can lead you to a pain-free life. During the month of February, the Wellness Institute is offering life-changing, non-surgical spinal decompression at 50% off. That means payments could be as low as $30. Just call this number, 615-246-5009, to set up your consultation. Now, when you get there, either Dr. Mitchell or Dr. Ashley will review an advance report of findings and review any previous MRIs you might have. They often find things other people have missed. And then you will decide on the new age technologies that's the best fit for you. Besides the non-surgical spinal decompression, they have robot laser and knee decompression for those with knee ailments. And remember, it's 50% off non-surgical spinal decompression for all new patients. That's cheaper than most of your insurance copays in many cases. So call Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley to set up your consultation today, 615-246-5009. I'm Brian Wilson, and the Wellness Institute of Nashville has my personal stamp of approval, so call them today, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.